All right, let's talk about a learning technique that is so simple, but so incredibly powerful. You'll honestly wonder how you ever got by without it. We're talking about self-explanation. And yeah, it's pretty much a hidden superpower for your brain.
You've been there, right? We all have. You sit through a whole online lecture, you're nodding along, maybe you even jot down a few notes, and you feel super productive. But then, an hour later, you try to remember what it was all about, and poof, it's gone. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a giant hole in it. So frustrating.
And here's the thing. It's not really your fault. The way we learn online often turns us into passive consumers. We just sit back and let the information wash over us. We watch, we listen, but we don't truly interact with it. And that's exactly why so much of it just vanishes.
But what if I told you there's a way to fix that? A simple little method that flips a switch in your brain, taking you from that passive consumer mode to being an active, engaged learner. A way to make things actually stick.
Now, this isn't some complicated system that you have to buy or some app you need to download. Nope, it's just a mental habit, a trick if you want to call it that. And it's backed by a ton of science about how our brains actually learn best.
And here it is. It's called self-explanation. That's it. It's the simple act of hitting pause on whatever you're learning and then explaining the concept to yourself. In your own words, out loud, or even just writing it down. You know, researchers have a fancy term for this. They call it a constructive learning scaffold. Just think about that for a second. A scaffold is something you build around a structure to help you work on it, right? That's what self-explanation does for your brain. It forces you to find the little gaps in your understanding and fix your own mistakes right then and there.
The best way to think about it is like this. You become your own private teacher. You're the student, and you're also the instructor, having this little dialogue with yourself, asking questions, and then providing the answers. It's this powerful one-on-one session for really deep learning.
Okay, this all sounds great. It makes sense. But what does the actual data say? Is this just a nice idea, or does it deliver a real, measurable boost to your learning? Let's dig into the evidence.
So the source for this explainer isn't just one study. It's what's called a meta-analysis, which is basically a super study. Researchers went out and gathered up the results from 56 totally separate experiments on self-explanation to see if they could find a definitive answer. And just look at the scale of this thing. Across those 56 studies, they crunched the numbers on 204 different data points. I mean, this wasn't a small-time operation. This was a massive investigation looking at how this technique holds up in all sorts of different situations.
All right, the moment of truth. After sifting through all of that research, data from thousands of students, what was the final verdict? Does it actually work?
The answer came down to this number, 0.46. Now, in the world of statistics, that's what we call an effect size. And trust me, anything over 0.4 is considered a really meaningful, solid impact. This isn't just a tiny little bump. It's a clear signal that self-explanation gives you a serious advantage.
And to put that number into perspective, just look at this. On the left, you've got the performance of people using standard study methods. And on the right, that's the group that was actively using self-explanation. It's a huge jump. That's the difference between kinda knowing something and truly mastering it.
So, we know it works. The evidence is there. The next logical question is, how do we make it work for us? Well, the study gives us some fantastic, super practical clues on how to do just that. Okay, this is maybe the single most important tip. The technique is way more effective when you are in control of the pace. That means you have to be able to pause that video or stop that lecture. You need to give yourself the time and space to think and explain. Content that just autoplays from one thing to the next is the absolute enemy of this kind of deep learning.
And where does it shine the most? Well, the analysis found it's an absolute rock star for conceptual knowledge. That's understanding the why behind an idea. So not just knowing how to solve a problem, but understanding why the formula works in the first place. It still helps with the step-by-step stuff, for sure, but its real power is in helping you get those big foundational concepts.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. We've seen what self-explanation is, we've looked at the hard proof that it works, and now we know the best ways to use it. It's time to officially add this superpower to your learning toolkit.
It really is this simple. Next time you're learning anything, just remember these 3 steps. 1, pause. 2, ask yourself a simple question, like, why does that work? Or, how would I explain this to someone else? And 3, actually say the answer out loud or write it down. That's it. That's the whole technique.
And the payoff is absolutely huge. You're forcing your brain to switch from standby mode to being fully active. You immediately find out what you don't understand. You build stronger connections in your brain so the information actually sticks. And, as we saw in the data, you will very likely see a real, tangible boost in your performance.
So, I'll leave you with this little challenge. The next time you're watching an explainer, reading a book, or sitting in a class, just remember to hit that mental pause button. Because the most important question you can ask isn't for the teacher, it's the one you ask yourself. Thanks for learning with us.